Bonjour et bienvenue dans la salle de presse de la Commission européenne pour notre briefing quotidien en ligne. Et merci de nous suivre également sur Europe by Satellite. Nous sommes le lundi 21 juin. Nous avons plusieurs annonces à vous faire aujourd'hui et pour la première annonce, permettez-moi d'appeler Adalbert sur scène pour vous parler de la poursuite de notre coopération avec les États-Unis.
Thank you, Dana. Tomorrow morning, Vice Presidents Hinas, Commissioner Reinders, and Commissioner Johansson will meet US Secretary for Homeland Security Alejandro Mayorkas and Deputy Assistant Attorney General Bruce Swartz in Lisbon. This will be the first EU-US Justice and Home Affairs ministerial meeting in person with the Biden administration. Topics will include cooperation in the fight against terrorism, violent extremism, and hate speech, the responsibility of online platforms, cybersecurity and artificial intelligence, as well as visa reciprocity. There will also be a discussion on the resumption of transatlantic travel following the first meeting of the EU-US Experts Working Group on this issue, which took place on Friday last week. There will be a press conference tomorrow after the meeting around 2 p.m. Brussels time. We will also publish a statement once the meeting is over.
Thank you very much, Adalbert. Now I will invite Sonia to provide you some news regarding European innovation.
Good afternoon. Today, the Commission published the European and Regional Innovation Scoreboards for 2021. The scoreboards show that Europe's innovation performance keeps increasing across member states and its regions. On average, innovation performance has increased by 12.5% since 2014. There is continued convergence within the EU, with lower-performing countries growing faster than higher-performing countries, therefore closing the innovation gap among them. In the global landscape, the EU is performing better than some of its competitors like China, Brazil, South Africa, Russia, and India. The European Innovation Scoreboard provides a comparative analysis of innovation performance in EU countries, European countries, and regional neighbors. The Regional Innovation Scoreboard is the regional extension of the European Innovation Scoreboard, assessing the innovation performance of European regions. This year's scoreboard is based on a methodology which includes new indicators such as environmental sustainability and digitalization. For more information, please consult our press release and questions and answers available on our website. Thank you.
Merci beaucoup Sonia. Et puis permettez-moi de vous rappeler qu'aujourd'hui, le haut représentant vice-président Borrell préside le Conseil des affaires étrangères à Luxembourg. Les commissaires Várhelyi y participent également. Le Conseil a commencé ce matin par une discussion sur le Bélarus après une réunion informelle avec Sviatlana Tikhanovskaya, représentante des forces pro-démocratiques bélarusses. L'Irak et l'Amérique latine sont les deux autres points qui figurent à l'agenda des discussions du Conseil. Les ministres auront l'occasion surtout de s'entretenir avec les ministres des Affaires étrangères de l'Irak, Fouad Hussein, qui a été invité à participer aujourd'hui au déjeuner de travail. Les ministres discuteront également de l'Éthiopie, de la Turquie et du Liban. Le haut représentant, vice-président Borrell, tiendra une conférence de presse après la réunion vers 16h45 que vous pouvez suivre comme d'habitude sur Europe by Satellite. Mais puisque nos équipes, nos porte-paroles qui s'occupent des affaires étrangères sont à Luxembourg pour ce conseil, je vous invite donc de réserver vos questions au sujet affaires étrangères pour la conférence de presse qui suit cet après-midi. Et vous pouvez également joindre nos porte-paroles Nabila, notamment bilatéralement par téléphone avant ceci. Enfin, je vous rappelle que suite au briefing technique off the record que nous avons organisé ce matin sur le plan de relance de l'Autriche et de la Slovaquie, Un autre briefing technique off the record aura lieu cet après-midi. Cette fois-ci, ce sera sur la Lettonie, sur le plan de relance letton, et il aura lieu à 16h cet après-midi. Maintenant, je vous invite à me signaler en levant votre main si vous avez des questions pour nous aujourd'hui. Effectivement, je vois plusieurs mains levées. Donc, je passe d'abord la parole à Yossi. Yossi, are you there?
Do you hear me? Do you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Go ahead.
Okay, my question is the following. An EU commissioned report on Palestinian school textbooks have shown that anti-Semitism and incitement to violence is still predominant in the Palestinian education sector. My question is the following. On the basis of this report, will the Commission condition its financial aid, because it's helping financially the Palestinian education sector, will it condition to changes in these school textbooks? Thank you.
Thank you very much for your question, Yossi. Anna has joined me to provide you an answer.
Thank you. Thanks, Yossi, for the question. I believe that we already had the opportunity to exchange bilaterally on the subject, but allow me to, maybe for the benefit of the other colleagues that have not followed this as probably in great depth as you have, to contextualize that, what this report was about. So, you know that the EU and other European donors collectively support the Palestinian education sector and the provision of quality services in a wide range of ways. Let's be clear, the EU does not fund Palestinian textbooks. Nevertheless, the EU has funded an independent study of Palestinian textbooks against defined international benchmarks based on the UNESCO standards on peace, tolerance, and non-violence education. The aim of the study was to provide the EU with a critical, comprehensive, and objective basis for policy dialogue with the Palestinian Authority in the education sector, and to promote quality education services, including allegations of incitement. Now, you know that the research was carried out by the independent and internationally recognized Georg Eckert Institute for International Textbooks. You're aware that the report was published on Friday, last Friday, on the 18th of June. The report, just to let you a bit know, covers, of course, a wide range of subjects for the period of school years from 2017 until 2021 on the basis of a sample of Palestinian Authority-approved textbooks. Now, when it comes to the conclusions of the study that you mentioned, the analysis has revealed a complex picture. The textbooks largely adhere to UNESCO standards and adopt the criteria that are prominent in international education discourse, including a strong focus on human rights. They express a narrative of resistance within the context of the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, and they display an antagonism towards Israel. We would invite you to read the report. It's over 190 pages. As regards to the consequences that you mentioned, what we can very clearly say is that the EU remains committed to supporting the Palestinian Authority in building the institutions of a future democratic, viable, and independent state that respects human rights and lives side by side with Israel in peace and security. This is our long-standing position as the European Union, as you know. Promoting high-quality education is particularly important in this context. However complicated the conflict with the Palestinian Authority must ensure the highest standards in fostering a culture of peace and coexistence, paving the way for a future where the conflict can be resolved through negotiations leading to a two-state solution. We reiterate our unequivocal commitment to cooperate with the Palestinian Authority to promote full compliance of its education material with UNESCO standards of peace, tolerance, coexistence, and non-violence, as we have just mentioned. In this context, the European Union will step up its engagement with the Palestinian Authority on the basis of the study, with the aim to ensure that further curriculum reform addresses problematic issues in the shortest possible timeframe, and that the Palestinian Authority takes responsibility to screen textbooks not analysed in the study. We have agreed to work with the Palestinian Authority to set out a specific roadmap for this work, which must include a comprehensive system of policy dialogue, continuous engagement and incentives with the express purpose of promoting and monitoring and facilitating change. This roadmap must also establish an objective and credible process of screening and monitoring of education material for which, let's be clear, the Palestinian Authority will be fully responsible and that will ensure coherence with UNESCO standards. I would just maybe like to finish, and sorry I was a bit long on this, that the European Union has absolutely no tolerance for incitement to hatred, violence as a mean to achieve political goals, and anti-Semitism in all of its forms. These principles are non-negotiable for this Commission.
Thank you very much, Anna. I will now invite you to keep your hand up if you have additional questions for Anna on this subject. So please only keep your hand up if your question is about that. So, Anne, est-ce que ta question est pour Anna et est à ce sujet?
Non, elle porte pas, ma question ne porte pas là-dessus.
D'accord, alors je t'invite à patienter un moment pour voir si les autres collègues qui ont la main levée ont des questions là-dessus. Ça a l'air d'être le cas. Donc, Salam, I think you have a question on this. Go ahead. Salam Kayali. Do we have him on the line?
Hello, can you hear me?
We can hear you, so go ahead.
Yes. So if we are talking about the Palestinian education, I have a question in the same domain. Actually, now we have pictures and since maybe 10 days about the expansion of the settlement outspot in just 10 days in Jabal Subih in Beta, south of Nablus. This certainly actually happened after we have a new government in Israel. So what is the EU statement, is especially that the EU refuse the settlement in West Bank? So, thank you.
Thank you so much. Well, the question goes beyond the subject that Anna was addressing. I wonder if Anna has anything to add in relation to your question in the broader sense.
No, I think that as the journalist rightly mentioned, the position on settlements by the European Union is very clear. This has not changed. It respects, of course, international resolutions by the Security Council in this stage, and I am sure that this will, of course, continue to be the case, to be addressed with the new Israeli government. But further than that, I have no further comments. But I'm sure that my colleague Nabila could probably get back to you with a more substantial comment.
Indeed, so please, as I said at the beginning, you can reach out to Nabila, who is in Luxembourg for the European Council of, for the Council of Foreign Ministers, which takes place in Luxembourg today. Are there any additional questions for Anna at this stage? So please keep your hand up if your question is for Anna. So I see that Lorna's hand is up. Lorna, is your question for Anna?
Yes, it is. It's kind of a double question, but Anna might want to respond to elements of it. So some of my colleagues in recent days at Associated Press have done some quite harrowing reporting on the abuse of minors in detention centres in Libya. They're official detention centres. So the money that feeds them is coming from the Interior Ministry, which is European money, and I'm sure taxpayers are concerned about their money going to this type of establishment. And it kind of comes on top of some returns that we saw last week, 270 people to Libya, and it just highlights the problems that there are in the country. And beyond the money itself, Commissioner Johansson said last week that with the new government, there might be a window of opportunity to be able to do something. I'm just wondering what we can change. Is there a need to change the way the trust fund's used? Is there something else that can be done through the new authorities? Will the new authorities have any power that the EU can kind of cooperate and deal with? There you go. So it's a broad question, but maybe you have something to say, Anna, on that.
No, thank you. It's a broad question and it involves several angles, including migration management. So I will let Anna have a go at it, and then we may return to you bilaterally from Adalbert's perspective, for instance, to complete on the parts related to migration management problem. Anna.
Okay, thanks very much. So I think, Lauren, maybe just to contextualize in these, because you mentioned the recent visits of both Commissioners Vahey and Commissioner Johansson to Libya. I think that one of the main messages that was passed was that, of course, the European Union as a whole is willing to re-engage with the new unity government in Libya to tackle all the issues that affect Libya when it comes to stability, development, and also, of course, in the case of the migration challenges, and that, of course, we see. Now, you know very well that when it comes to our position on the detention centers, it's absolutely clear that, we've been maintaining that the situation there is absolutely unacceptable, and the current arbitrary detention system has to end in Libya. This is a very clear message that continues to be passed to the Libyan authorities. And this again, during the recent visits of both commissioners, they asked against Libyan authorities to ensure the end of this arbitrary detention system and inhumane conditions. And they did actually offer financial support for alternative accommodation, such as shelters, hosting family schemes, and cash support. So this is something that we would very much, would be willing to engage, of course, with our Libyan counterparts, because we do see for sure that it's an area where, from the European Union perspective, we need to cooperate and to make these detention centers close as soon as possible. And as we've said, the formation of the new executive offers the opportunity for renewed cooperation, including, of course, in the area of migration and protection efforts and voluntary humanitarian returns, alongside actions in the area, of course, of border management and anti-smuggling, will continue to be priority actions in the next programming period.
Thank you very much, Anna. So please keep your hands up if you have additional questions for Anna at this stage. I know that Anne's question is not for Anna, so I assume that David's question is for her. So David, go ahead.
Oui, merci, bonjour. David Carrette, Radio Radicale. Je me demande comment c'est possible d'imaginer de pouvoir mettre en place et donner de l'argent à un gouvernement qui, dans les faits, n'existe pas. Pendant toutes ces années, avec le Trust Fund pour l'Afrique, vous avez donné plein d'argent à ces gens. Le résultat, c'est ce qu'a écrit AP, entre autres. Donc, des abus sexuels, des tortures, et vous continuez, même quand il y a la côte, la soi-disant garde-côte libyenne, vous financez la formation parce qu'il faut sauver des vies en mer, mais à la fin, ces gens servent uniquement à intercepter des migrants en mer et les reporter en Libye avec condamnation de l'OIM et l'UNHCR. Donc, comment pouvez-vous imaginer, dans les conditions actuelles du pays, pas quand il y aura peut-être un gouvernement normal, mais de financer ces gens?
Anna.
Many thanks, David, for the question. So because you actually mentioned the Trust Fund for Africa, yes, the majority of the funding that the European Union has mobilized for Libya comes from the Emergency Trust Fund for Africa. This is about 455 million euros of a total of around 700 million that have been mobilized for Libya during 2014 and 2020. I would maybe just like to recall again that, the border management program in Libya Libya is worth 57.2 million euros. But of course, you know, a big part of the EU support is, of course, also going towards stabilizing, for example, the situation in the south. And I would maybe like to just recall that the Trust Fund, for example, has allowed for over 50,000 migrants to return voluntarily to their countries of origin. And we've been able to evacuate more than 5,700 refugees and asylum seekers from Libya. More than 200,000 non-food items and hygiene kits have actually been distributed for refugees and vulnerable migrants, thanks to support from the EU Trust Fund. Around 4.7 million people across Africa have actually improved access to basic services, including health, education, infrastructure, and public services. Again, thanks to support coming from the EU Trust Fund, and this includes 16 hospital and medical facilities that have been able to be rehabilitated, and we have around 70,000 children that have received education, both formal and informal. And also 2,500 young entrepreneurs have been assisted in job training. So, I mean, the European Union is trying to help and do a lot of things. And maybe just to precise that, indeed, when it comes to indeed the training for the Libyan Coast Guards, I mean, this is done, you know, under a program that is, of course, managed by the Italian Ministry of Interior, and as is the case in all of the EU supported trainings, human rights for sure continues to be, you know, an integral part of any training. You know, the European Union trains to the standards that we give ourselves also in the European Union. So this is absolutely very clear.
Thank you very much, Jana. I think that David has a follow-up question. David, vas-y.
Oui, mais merci. Une chose, c'est merci pour cette longue liste de projets que vous financez. Je voulais savoir combien d'argent vous avez donné au ministère de l'Intérieur libyen, quelle est la chiffre exacte, et quelle est votre réponse par rapport au fait que les agences des Nations Unies vous disent tout ça, c'est scandaleux. Vous êtes en train de financer un système où on prend des gens en mer, on les met dans des centres fermés, ils sont torturés, ils sont harcelés, ils vivent dans des conditions impossibles, et tout ça, c'est fait avec le soutien de l'Union européenne et de ses États membres.
Merci beaucoup pour la relance, David. Nous avons le plus grand respect pour les positions des agences des Nations Unies à ces sujets et à d'autres. Comme Anna a dit en réponse à la première question de Lorne qui a lancé des discussions, nous faisons notre position sur les centres de détention claire et sur le fait qu'elles devront fermer. Et nous faisons claire notre position sur le respect des droits de l'homme en Libye à chaque opportunité que nous avons, cela étant une partie intégrale de toutes nos actions sur place. Mais ce que Anna vient d'expliquer aussi est que nous nous engageons parce que notre objectif est d'améliorer la situation pour les migrants qui sont sur place et qui sont, pour certains d'entre eux, coincés quelque part en transit, et que nous travaillons avec des agences internationales parmi d'autres, pour les aider à retrouver une vie et à retourner dans leur pays d'origine, et pour en fait leur donner du soutien des premiers besoins sur place. Donc notre action s'inscrit dans une logique très claire. Nous faisons clair notre position sur les centres de détention, sur les abus que tu mentionnes, mais nous devons aider les gens, nous devons aider les migrants, et c'est ça ce que nous essayons de faire par des différents programmes et par des différentes actions que nous avons là-dessus. Sur l'argent qui va au ministère, je ne sais pas, Anna, si tu as des données sous la main.
Sur l'argent, c'est juste pour préciser que ce n'est pas de l'argent qui va au ministère de l'Intérieur de la Libye. C'est un programme qui est mis en œuvre, merci Dana, mis en œuvre par le ministère de l'Intérieur italien. Et comme Dana a très bien expliqué, en fait, l'Union européenne est en train de travailler avec le IOM et avec UNHCR justement en Libye pour essayer d'améliorer la situation là. Donc on travaille très étroitement avec ces deux partenaires internationaux qui en fait aussi mettent en œuvre une partie très grande de l'appui de l'Union européenne. Merci.
Merci Anna. Y a-t-il des questions pour Anna à ce sujet, à ce stade? Donc, on est au sujet Libye. Je pense que David, il a une nouvelle question de suivi. David, vas-y.
Oui, parce que le ministère des Affaires intérieures libyen a signé un accord, un Memorandum of Understanding avec la mission de l'Union européenne en Libye le 27 mai 2021. Entre autres. Donc, ce n'est pas seulement les gardes-côtes. Et vous savez très bien que IOM et UNHCR ne travaillent pas vraiment en Libye, c'est-à-dire ils travaillent avec des gens locaux, avec des grandes difficultés, etc. Donc, et c'est pas pour améliorer la vie des migrants. Donc, vous pouvez continuer à promouvoir une narration, mais les faits sont là. Il y a des migrants. Le système que vous avez mis en place entre les refoulements de fait de la garde-côte libyen et ce qui se passe en Libye, c'est un système qui est condamné par les deux agences que tu as mentionnées, Dana. Donc voilà, c'est pourquoi vous continuez à financer ce truc, ce machin, ce système de torture pour les migrants.
Merci beaucoup pour ta relance, David. Je pense que nous avons essayé d'apporter des éléments de réponse à ceci dans nos réponses précédentes. Je me demande si Anna a des éléments complémentaires là-dessus.
Oui, peut-être je vais revenir vers toi après vérifier l'accord que tu as dit avec le ministère de l'Intérieur libyen. À ma connaissance, il n'y a pas d'argent qui en fait va aux autorités libyennes directement. C'est, comme je viens d'expliquer, un programme qui est mis en œuvre par le ministère de l'Intérieur de l'Italie. Et oui, on a essayé d'expliquer ce qu'on est en train de faire avec des circonstances qui sont très difficiles. Personne ne dit que les choses sont parfaites, mais on travaille là-dessus, y compris avec les agences de l'ONU pour essayer d'aider surtout à des gens qui sont en situation très vulnérable.
Merci beaucoup, Anna. Y a-t-il d'autres questions pour Anna à ce sujet? Donc, gardez vos mains levées à ce stade seulement si vous avez des questions pour Anna. So, Angela, is your question for Anna?
Yes, my question is for Anna. Thanks for the opportunity. I wanted to know if, so you're going to put more money on this trust fund for Africa. I was wondering if you have an idea of how much and if the decision is going to be taken by a proposal from the Commission at the next European Council. Thanks.
Many thanks for the question, Angela. I think that allows us to clarify that actually the trust funds will actually end by the end of this year. There was already an extension of 1 extra year until the end of this year. When it comes to migration, you know that the new Neighborhood Development Cooperation and International Cooperation Instrument, INDICI Global Europe, will be, of course, our main financing instrument to support the EU's external action. And you are aware that an indicative 10% of INDICI will be dedicated or will be used for actions in the migration area. So support for countries will continue under the INDICI, but not under the trust fund after this year.
Thank you, Anna. Are there any additional questions for Anna at this stage? Nikolai, go ahead.
Yes, apologies. I don't have a video on camera. Yes, and I wanted to just sort of get an update in terms of the training of the Libyan Coast Guard. Has that resumed? Can you give us any figures on how many you trained up until today? And also, when it comes to the screening of the Libyan Coast Guard in terms of training, what happens to those who are refused training? Do they just go back into the normal rotation of the Guard? Thank you.
Thank you. Anna.
Thanks. So what I can tell you is that under the UTF Border Management Program, 105 members of the GACS have been trained. With regards to Irini, I have to admit that I think it's better that you check with Nabila. My understanding is that no, the training here has not resumed as of yet. And when it comes to what happens to those that are not taken in I will have to verify.
Thank you very much. That was indeed a quite specific operational question, and we will get back to you on this.
Yeah, just maybe to say that the vetting does actually take place in consultation with the UN agencies, but we will verify to what happens to those that do not make it for the training.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Anna. So, are there any additional questions for Anna at this stage? I also see in our internal chat that several of you would have questions relating to foreign affairs, like Belarus and the HR's visit to Lebanon. As I said at the beginning of the midday briefing, I will kindly invite you to reserve those questions for the press conference following the Foreign Affairs Council, which takes place right now in Luxembourg. It wouldn't be proper to anticipate on the results of the Foreign Affairs Council, so please hold your questions until then. And there is also a practical question. Our spokespeople in charge of foreign affairs are in Luxembourg to follow the Council, so they are not present here and able to answer to you on those questions. Thank you very much, Anna. And we proceed with Anna. Anne, vas-y, c'est ton tour.
Oui, bonjour. Est-ce que vous m'entendez? Oui, vous m'entendez? Ah. Alors, en fait, je souhaiterais avoir une mise à jour sur les chiffres, le nombre de personnes vaccinées dans l'UE, le nombre de doses livrées au pays et ce à quoi, enfin, et leur correspondance en termes de personnes, de potentiel de personnes vaccinées. Voilà. Et puis, en fait, quand on regarde les chiffres de l'ECDC, on se rend compte quand même qu'il y a quelques pays qui sont vraiment à la traîne. Hein, enfin, la Roumanie, la Bulgarie, la Lettonie, voilà. Est-ce qu'il y a des choses qui sont prévues pour ces pays? Et est-ce que vous avez bon espoir d'arriver à 70% de la population adulte vaccinée courant juillet ou à la fin du mois de juillet? Merci.
Merci beaucoup, Anne, pour ta question. Je donnerai la parole à Stéphane, qui doit se connecter pour t'apporter une réponse.
Bonjour Anne, je vais te donner quelques chiffres en effet. Bon, mais laisse-moi peut-être d'abord commencer par le commentaire le plus important. Nous pensons que sur base des prévisions de la livraison des doses qui ont lieu encore ce mois-ci et le mois prochain, sur base qui a été déjà livré, nous pensons que suffisamment de doses seront livrées pour permettre d'atteindre l'objectif de 70%, 70%, excuse-moi, de la vaccination de la population adulte. Peut-être quelques chiffres, et je te rappelle que nous avons un très beau site sur lequel vous trouverez les sites qui sont régulièrement mis à jour. Il suffit de faire Safe Vaccines European Commission, Google that et tu vas tomber sur ce site. Tu verras que 357 millions de doses ont été livrées, donc 357 millions de doses ont été livrées. Je parle maintenant de chiffres juste avant le week-end, et 300, parce que les chiffres doivent être mis à jour évidemment, 310 millions plus ou moins de doses ont été administrées, et 55% de la population adulte a déjà reçu au moins une dose. Ce qui est peut-être aussi intéressant à savoir, c'est que tu trouveras des chiffres plus spécifiques sur les doses par société sur le ECDC Tracker. Pour le trouver, il suffit de faire ECDC Vaccine Tracker sur Google ou un autre search engine et vous tomberez sur cette page qui donc présente les chiffres de livraison par société. Peut-être aussi quelque chose que je voudrais ajouter, c'est que 32% de la population adulte a déjà reçu une seconde dose. Mais là aussi, il s'agit de chiffres de la fin de la semaine dernière, donc ce sont des chiffres qui évidemment sont mis à jour régulièrement. Finalement, peut-être un autre chiffre qui t'intéresserait, c'est le fait que nous avons passé le montant de 25 millions de vaccinations par semaine. Donc nous sommes dans une situation où nous recevons beaucoup de livraisons de doses, où les doses sont administrées par les États membres et c'est très important de continuer cet effort à administrer les doses et c'est sur cette base-là et sur base des prévisions de doses qui seront encore livrées que nous pensons en effet que notre objectif de 70%-70% pourra être atteint au cours du mois prochain. Merci.
Merci beaucoup Stéphane. Je pense que Anne avait aussi un autre élément dans sa question qui se réfère au fait qu'il y a des discrépances entre certains pays de l'Union européenne en termes des vaccinations. Effectivement, il y a certains pays membres qui sont plus avancés que d'autres. Et dans notre stratégie sur la vaccination, nous discutons de ces choses-ci dans le cadre du steering board et nous essayons de voir quels sont les problèmes, de quelle nature ils sont pour aider les États membres qui ont pris du retard à récupérer. Une des choses qui est très importante, bien évidemment, est aussi le fait que la population doit vouloir se faire vacciner et donc nous devons nous tâcher à communiquer de manière très proactive et en toute transparence sur les bénéfices des vaccins et de la vaccination afin de réduire l'hésitation de certaines parties de la population ou de certains groupes de la population qui hésiteraient peut-être à se faire vacciner ou bien à se faire vacciner tout de suite. Donc il y a beaucoup de travail qui doit se faire avec les États membres et à l'intérieur des États membres au sujet de construire de la confiance dans les vaccins. Et je vois que Stéphane veut ajouter des choses. Stéphane, vas-y.
Merci beaucoup. Tu as tout à fait raison, Dana, qu'il est extrêmement important, en effet, de continuer les vaccinations. Je pense que la littérature scientifique est très claire là-dessus. Ce que je tiens à souligner, c'est que la commissaire Kyriakides est en train de faire un tour des capitales. Elle rend visite à plusieurs États membres, plusieurs capitales, pour suivre avec les États membres la situation, pour bien comprendre les défis que chaque État membre doit surmonter pour assurer une bonne vaccination de la population et pour voir dans quelle mesure la Commission peut offrir du soutien pour que les États membres, en effet, soient dans une bonne position pour assurer la vaccination de suffisamment de personnes, justement pour atteindre notre objectif de 70%. Merci.
Merci beaucoup, Stéphane. À ce stade, y a-t-il d'autres questions pour Stéphane? Donc, gardez vos mains levées, s'il vous plaît, si vous avez des questions pour Stéphane au sujet de la vaccination du Covid en général. Je pense que Anne a une question de suivi. Vas-y, Anne.
Oui, merci beaucoup. Merci. J'ai une question. On est bien d'accord que quand vous dites 70% de la population adulte vaccinée, il s'agit bien de personnes ayant reçu 2 doses. Et regarde le nombre de... Enfin, je sais pas, moi, vous parlez d'un rythme de vaccination de 25 millions de doses administrées par semaine, mais quand on regarde les chiffres, je sais pas, ça me semble compliqué, à moins que ça augmente, mais puisqu'il y a quand même assez peu de gens pour le moment qui ont une vaccination complète. Sur le site de l'ECDC, on est à 30%. Voilà, c'est la question que je me posais. Merci beaucoup. Merci.
Merci beaucoup, Anne. Juste pour clarifier, vaccination complète, ça veut dire 2 doses. Si le vaccin qui est utilisé prévoit 2 doses, donc dans les cas de BioNTech, Pfizer, Moderna, AstraZeneca, c'est effectivement le cas. Mais dans les cas de Johnson Johnson, une vaccination complète, ça demande seulement 1 dose. Donc c'est ce que nous appelons vaccination complète, effectivement. Et je peux aussi clarifier effectivement que notre but de donner de délivrer assez de doses pour couvrir la vaccination des 70% de la population adulte, ça se réfère effectivement à des vaccinations complètes. Mais encore une fois, notre but est clairement de délivrer assez de doses pour qu'on puisse vacciner 70% des adultes. Y a-t-il d'autres questions pour Stéphane au sujet de la vaccination? Je pense que Mark, you have a question for Stéphane, I think.
Okay, I have a question for Stefan. I see that Commissioners Kyriakides and Skinnis met with the European Federation of Pharmaceutical Industries and Associations today that included pharmaceutical CEOs. I understand the meeting was about learning the lessons of the pandemic, but can you provide clearer information, any details about what actually they discussed? Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mark. Indeed, Stefan, lessons learned from the pandemic?
Indeed, thank you very much. Hello, Mark. I don't think I can offer you lots of details with regard to the meeting. Indeed, as you know, Commissioner Kyriakides, but also the Vice President Skinas often meet with different players in the world of pharmaceuticals, in the world of medicines, including pharmaceutical companies. The lessons learned, obviously, communication which was adopted last week was a very important communication which has identified several lessons that we better take forward if we want to learn from the different experiences that we have built up over the last couple of months, over the last year, I would say. Obviously, this is also a very important topic to discuss with the key players involved, including the pharmaceutical industry. And so this is definitely also a topic that was very important to be discussed, but I'm afraid I cannot give you any further elements. Just would like to draw your attention to the importance of our pharmaceutical strategy, which has been adopted in December last year, and where we lay down the importance of accessible and affordable medicines for the European citizens. That is, of course, I would say, the general policy frame, the general policy priority that we have set ourselves with regard to pharmaceutical products and medicines. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Stefan. So please keep your hand up if you have additional questions for Stefan on vaccines, vaccination, COVID. Mark, you have a follow-up question. Go ahead.
Yes, Stefan, can you say if the Commission AstraZeneca are now on a path to reach the court-mandated number of vaccines? Are they discussing that today? What is the latest on that? Is that going to happen?
Thank you, Stefan.
Thank you very much. We definitely hope that it is going to happen. When you look at the court decision was very clear. The court decision has clearly indicated that the company has to follow a set of very clear contractual principles which are laid down in the advance purchase agreement. One of these very fundamental principles is the fact that the plant in the UK is a plant that also has to be used for the production and delivery of the doses when it's important to reach the targets which have been set by the contract. So the court has been very clear, has indicated the path, has laid the tracks on the road that the company is expected to follow now for the delivery of its doses, to make sure that a sufficient number of doses is delivered. This is why we have welcomed this decision. We will now see how this court decision is implemented, and as was explained yesterday as well, the Belgian courts in Brussels will again take a look at the situation in the 24th and the 29th of September, check and assess to what extent the company has now indeed effectively produced and delivered doses on the basis of these tracks, on the basis of these contractual commitments. So we hope that with this very clear court decision, the increase of the deliveries, the production of the deliveries will soon be reality. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Stefan, are there any additional questions for Stefan on vaccine deliveries or vaccination? Angelo, is your question for Stefan?
Angelo Di Mambro, ANSA, Italian News Agency. I was wondering what are the countries that Commissioner Kyriakides is going to visit as Stefan has said, and if Italy is included in the number. Thank you.
Very clear questions. Stefan, do you have a planning ahead of all the trips?
I can share you a planning of all the trips. What I can tell you at this stage is that last week Commissioner Kyriakides has visited Bulgaria, Sofia. Tomorrow she will be in Athens, and she will then also be in Paris on Friday. But I'll let you know what then the next schedule is of the different member states. Again, the objective being to go to the member states, see what the situation is, listen with the member states, to listen to the member states' challenges and see to what extent the Commission can offer support, as we have already done quite often in the past. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Stefan. I think this concludes the list of questions for Stefan. So I will now open the floor for other types of questions that you may have. And indeed, Mihaela has her hand up. Mihaela, go ahead.
Bonjour, est-ce que tu m'entends bien?
Tout va bien, vas-y.
Merci. Écoute, c'est une question relative à l'état de droit. Ça concerne la Roumanie qui a une recommandation dans le cadre du mécanisme de vérification et coopération de démanteler la section spéciale d'investigation des magistrats. Seulement, la Cour constitutionnelle aujourd'hui a statué que les lois qui sont à la base de cette section spéciale sont constitutionnelles. Et d'ailleurs, l'arrêt de la Cour dit que la priorité de l'application du droit de l'Union européenne ne doit pas être perçue comme un balayement ou une déconsidération de l'identité constitutionnelle nationale. C'est une traduction bien entendu approximative, mais ça vous donne une idée. Bon, je sais pas, avez-vous un truc à dire? Merci.
Merci beaucoup, Mihaela. Je passerai la parole à Christian qui s'occupe de ces questions-ci dans notre équipe.
Oui, merci Michaela pour la question. Alors, nous prenons note de la décision de la Cour constitutionnelle de la Roumanie et nous avons vu en effet que maintenant aussi le written reasoning de cette... oui, raisonnement écrit, pardon. et aussi là, nous allons analyser ce jugement en détail. Généralement, tu sais que la Commission a été très claire concernant la primauté du droit européen. Ça est le même pour tous les cas, pour tous notre pays membre. Et alors, la primauté du droit européen est essentielle pour la Commission et pour le fonctionnement de l'Union européenne. C'est dans le cas des jugements, aussi dans ce cas de jugement de Cour européen, c'est comme toujours pour les autorités nationales, ça inclut aussi les cours de la Roumanie de faire la propre implémentation de la loi européenne et de le jugement de la Cour.
Merci beaucoup, Christian. Donc, effectivement, comme nous l'avons rappelé souvent, et même il y a peu, il y a quelques semaines, la primauté du droit communautaire est un des piliers fondamentaux de l'ordre juridique communautaire, ainsi que le fait que les jugements de la Cour de justice européenne sont obligatoires et doivent être mis en œuvre par les cours nationales. Merci beaucoup, Christian. Y a-t-il d'autres questions pour Christian à ce sujet ou à d'autres sujets qu'il couvre? So at this stage, please only keep your hand up if you have questions for Christian. This is not the case. Thank you, Christian. So now I open the floor to other topics. Yes, Nick has a question. Nick, go ahead.
Hi, Dana. Thanks very much. It's also on courts, but I think it's more one for Dan, really. The UK government is looking at amending the Human Rights Act in the UK to make it clear that British courts are not bound by the decisions of the ECHR. So I just wanted to ask Dan if you're concerned about this. There's a guillotine clause in the trade deal with the UK where you can suspend JHA cooperation in certain circumstances. What's the threshold for the Commission for doing that, and does this potentially meet it? Thank you.
Indeed, for Dan, who joined me promptly on stage. Dan, go ahead.
Hi, Nick. Thanks very much for your question. Indeed, we've seen some of the press reports over the weekend. Of course, I'm not going to comment on those at this point in time. As you know, the Trade and Cooperation Agreement provides for very close relations with the UK in the area of law enforcement and judicial cooperation in criminal matters. As you mentioned yourself, this is covered in the Trade and Cooperation Agreement. And of course, if you have a close relationship in this area with the UK, it's going to have to require a lot of trust and confidence between both parties. And that is why in the Trade and Cooperation Agreement, both the UK and the EU, including its member states, have committed to respecting fundamental rights, respecting democracy, the rule of law, and including giving domestic effect to fundamental rights set out in the European Convention on Human Rights, which, as you know, is a reference point, reference text on fundamental rights in 47 countries. But as I said, no comment on the press reports.
Thank you very much, Dan. Are there any additional questions for Dan at this stage? Yes, Nick has a follow-up. Go ahead, Nick.
Thanks. Sorry, it's just a very quick follow-up because Dan mentioned the word trust, and Commissioner Šefčovič gave a speech last week in which he was also talking about trust. I just wanted your assessment of where you think that's at, and do sort of reports like this and potential moves like this help at a time when things are obviously very difficult anyway?
Dan?
I think that's a very broad question. It covers a lot of different areas, a lot of different topics. I think Vice President Šefčovič set out what the EU's position is very, very clearly in a speech in front of the College of Europe on Friday. As you know, from our point of view, the agreements that we have reached, the withdrawal agreement and the trade and cooperation agreement, must be implemented in full. These are important parts, important ways in which we can establish trust between us. And I think that is very, very important going forward. Dialogue, transparency, all of these things feed into that.
Thank you very much, Dan. Are there any additional questions for Dan today on this matter or on other matters? That's not the case. Thank you, Dan. Are there any additional questions about any other topic today? That is not the case either, so thank you so much. Don't forget the technical briefing of the record at 4 o'clock on the Latvian plan, recovery and resilience plan, and of course, the press conference following the Foreign Affairs Council, which also takes place at 16:45 this afternoon. And thank you so much for your patience and for the fact that you kept your questions on foreign affairs for that press conference. Thank you and see you tomorrow.